Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I am very happy to have you today, Crrow777. And Crow has a great radio show. I encourage you all to check him out. He has various topics that he's dealing with, especially in the political realm. And I'm very pleased to have you here today. Hi, Crow. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Amina. Thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. How about you just give the audience a little introduction about yourself, and then we can just get right into our discussion.
Well, way back many years ago, kind of pushing towards a decade, I became famous for my telescope work. Since that point, I launched a podcast, which goes all over the world, I guess is one way to say it. And so as censorship has clamped down, the main place where you're going to find me is my own private server, which is Crrow777Radio.com. That's Crrow777Radio.com. Since 3/11, where all this nonsense poked its head into the light of day, we've doubled down. So we're delivering probably more content than any podcast I'm aware of. We're doing 2 major, well-researched shows a week, 2 hours apiece, and then quite typically on Wednesday, we do a live stream on my partner's YouTube channel called Secrets of Saturn on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel called Crrow777, Crrow777, but I was recently locked out and let back in, so who knows how long that will be there. But if you go way back, all the telescope work is there. I was at one time best known for having filmed the first lunar wave.
Now that's fascinating. The first lunar wave, and how did that occur for you to discover that? Like, can you give us a brief overview on that? That sounds
well. There's actually so the way it works is Jason at one point, my partner that does the podcast with me, wanted to make a film of all the telescope work I did, and he finally talked me into it. And that's called Shoot the Moon. It's on Vimeo. Recurring members of our site get free access. It's a 2-hour film. That film contains most of the interesting things and all the lunar waves that I filmed and some lunar waves other people filmed. But basically what it is, it looks like if you took an old tube TV and filmed it with an old VHS camera, that rolling wave you get, 2 of those go over the moon and displace the entire image of the moon. And I accidentally filmed that in the near the equinox of 2012. And I held on to that footage for a year because I didn't want to open up social media. I have a degree in internet technology, and I kind of had a sense of where social media was going to go. As a matter of fact, on my website, the About page was written in 2013, and the entirety of what I wrote, and I've never updated it, is about free speech, because it was pretty clear what was about to happen to us with technology. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say every single inch forward we make into the digital realm will be a little bit more freedom that we have lost.
And let's just take it right there. I find that absolutely a fascinating thing, and I'm just I've been studying through the deep rabbit holes for probably 25 years, and I have learned and heard so many different pieces of information, and even privy to individuals that I know on this planet that, I've been learning from. So I've also fallen into the blockchain and cryptocurrency world, which you just spoke of. It's part of this digital change that we're about to go through. And it's a big part of the world that I've been in and I speak of. But I will say this, and I'd love for you to get into it to hear your side of this. I do feel that, yes, there is a digital world we are about to embark into that is complete digital. This is the transformation. You want to call it the Great Reset, but I do feel there are different people moving in behind, this opportunity, if it is an opportunity for some. And when I say that, and I've always said this, that there is a window of opportunity with the type of technology being presented here, whereby usually, currency, when it's controlled by people, is controlled by those who control this planet. So if currency becomes digital, then who is controlling the digital currency?
You'll never know. You'll never know the answer to that question. And, even if you want to do something as banal do a Wikipedia of all places, which is the last place for deep information, but they'll tell you flat out, oh, it was invented by this Japanese guy. Oh, by the way, that's not really a guy. That's a, this
Right.
thing we call it. And by the way, nobody knows what 3/4 of the code does. And by the way, it's a complete fugazi. The whole
Right.
thing is a fugazi. And if anyone out there listening thinks the central banks didn't see online currency coming, you better shake yourself awake. And cryptocurrency per se is not even the real problem. The misunderstanding, everyone says blockchain and this magical dreamland opens it. No, you don't know anything about it, and nobody knows who created it. And that's even in the stated narrative for what it is. But that's not even the real problem per se. The real problem is to use crypto, you have to get on the internet. That's like saying, I got a car, I got to go get on a highway. Who owns this highway? Will they put a checkpoint on this highway? Will they close the on and off ramps to this highway? I don't know. I don't control it. Will I even be allowed? Oh, I need a license to get on this highway. Oh, I got to have insurance to get on this. Oh, I didn't pay my insurance bill. Get the hell off my highway. So what you're looking at with crypto is exactly what I experienced a week before Christmas, where my YouTube channel, which has close to 200,000 admitted followers, was locked out. I was going through comments and this window came up, said, you're making important changes, prove who you are. Put me in an endless security loop. I was locked out. There is the pre-echo for crypto. One day in the future, when cryptocurrency has caught a hold, which it almost certainly will, you will go to get money one day and it'll say, sorry, you can't have money today because you didn't renew your driver's license or any damn reason. And the problem is that is not a human being doing that. Is not a human being that locked me out of YouTube. And this is the promise of technology, because there's a world takeover afoot, in case nobody's noticed. And it's about the freedom of the human species. And the people who would like to take control simply do not have the manpower. So where are they going for the control? They've put all their eggs in the tech basket. You folks out there all need systems. All these systems are tied to commerce. Commerce has strings attached. Most of us have slept through the majority of our lives thinking, oh, I go to 7-Eleven. Oh, I have a car. Oh, I do all these things in commerce, never understanding the strings that are attached, never looking at your driver's license and saying, wait a minute, I don't write my name in capital letters. Why is my name written in capital letters? It's a dream state that we have come up through, which is now coming to an end, because we are kind of leaving an age that I would describe as I believe in things. We are entering an age of, I would describe as, I know things. And the difference between believing and knowing is like night and day. And so as we go in, people are going to start to realize that all these systems that provide a modern life are based in commerce, and they have a set of laws and strings attached that most of us never even dreamed of. As a matter of fact, when we begin to explain what's tied to commerce systems, people, some of them freak out and just refuse to look. They can't imagine that what they're being told is true, but unfortunately it is true.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying here, and this is about to unfold in many ways. Here in Canada, there is so much going on here with just a lot of the threats from China and the dictatorship that we see unfolding here. For those who are awake enough to see and understand a lot of these things that are happening. And when you talk about the digital change like that in the takeover, and we are losing our freedoms by this, I will still say this. I want to look at two sides here, because it's really important. When you're on the verge of a complete changeover, a paradigm shift, there has to be there's chaos in between any two patterns of change, for one. And in that chaos, it is a matter of finding that position for yourself. Now, we collectively as human beings have to take some initiative and awareness and consciousness around what is going on to see this, what you're saying, for instance, in order to actually take some sort of control or some sort of path for ourselves if we want to. We're always in enslavement. So if we're going to be losing even more of our freedoms from what little we actually did have, then this, like no time than ever, is now to really, either tell your fellow human, or somehow we need to collectively wake up out of this trance, and we have to do something. I mean, what that is and how that is, and it's very easy for me to just say that, but literally that would be the stance. Or we have to accept that this change is going to happen, and we're about to lose a lot of our freedoms and go into this digital world. I do think that a lot of this digital technology, the way it's structured, the way it works, if we have a consciousness shift, we have an ability maybe to take something for ourselves here. I mean, it's hard to say and know when you don't even know the people who are creating this or who are in control of this. And it's Catherine Austin Fitts, I just saw a video of hers who kind of describes what's going on. And I have to say she describes it quite well, putting all the different systems in place, what they've done and compartmentalized, so you don't connect the dots. So you have a change in the digital world and currencies, the banking system, the reset, the invisible virus, and put them all together, and they're actually all connected, and it's their way of taking your freedom away. So, we need to see this. What can you see in this? What can you say that can help us? Or how do you see any way that we can do something? Like, is this all doom and gloom?
No, nature shows us things. Nature is closest to perfection we're going to get. There is no lie in nature. When you learn something in nature, you can bank on it. You don't have to question whether this thing you just witnessed in nature is true. It's nature. Of course it's true. It's this creation. And that's what we've been pulled away from. And we need to get back to the benchmark of what is true, because most of us get tied up in details trying to determine what is this. And that's where you spend your life spinning in a spin cycle. You need to get back to basic ways of thinking, and always use nature as your benchmark. This is my benchmark for truth. The natural world, the creation, if you will, of which I am part of which men and women are the apex. We're responsible, or supposed to be responsible for this place, whether you take it biblically or whether you don't. You can understand what I am saying is correct. Now, when you get back to these ideas, simple things like, how easily are we convinced that those damn Chinese or those damn Russians or those damn Islamic people, they're not even really human? But you see, that's the lesson here. I was in the Marine Corps during the first Gulf War, and I watched our media embed with the military and just run roughshod over a nation, which they had no right to do. Yet back in the 80s, I was perfectly fine with it. Oh, it's not happening to me. It's happening to someone else. There was my loss of humanity, to my own demise for that period of time. If you can look at what's happening to someone else and not have a care, then you're missing the point that what can be done to someone else can be done to you. And we need to get back. Human beings are all the same species. And if you're looking at the news and being convinced of this boogeyman or that boogeyman, you're hypnotized. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the next episode Jason and I put out, the last one for this year, will cover what we call the red-blue spell, which is just versions of what I'm saying. Okay. We just need to get back to common sense and have a care for one another. And if we see somebody being pummeled and we have it within our power to say, hey, knock it off, then do it. You don't pass someone on the street anymore in this age we're going to that's suffering if you have the power to reduce that suffering. That is a overwhelming, sweeping mind shift that we have to get back to, because every day in every country, there is a television in the corner somewhere convincing you that China's invading. Those damn Chinese, they're not even really human beings. They're no, they're human beings. Mm-hmm. Those people are under the same stresses that you are right now, maybe worse. Mm-hmm. But if you cut any one of them, they will bleed the same blood that you bleed. They will feel the same pain that you feel. And if you can't get back to understanding that, then for some period of time, you need to catch up. Yeah. And this plays into the political spectrum, and this plays into all the technology. And another thing I would add is people are so concerned with we're losing our freedom. Well, let me tell you something. Your freedom is up to you. Now, in the United States where I live, there was this idea that we were all in the home the free and the brave. Well, guess what? We woke up not too long ago realizing neither of those things is true anymore. So how do we get back? Well, for one thing, each one of us has a barometer in our bodies, in our soul and our mind that has good and bad. Is this correct? Is this incorrect? If you start to train yourself back to not accepting what you feel is wrong, that's how you get back. If you ask permission of a jailer, what do you suspect the jailer might tell you? Shut up, you're behind bars, don't ask me anything. But on the other side, if you realize you're a living man or a living woman with the divine spark and the apex species here, then a whole other door begins to open up. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. But unfortunately, there's this thing called commerce in our world, and we all use it, and there are all these strings attached. And that in itself is the reason why your name is written in capital letters on your birth certificate, on your driver's license, because we've forgotten that back in the Roman Empire, a slave had his name written in all caps. The next level above slave had the first initial in all caps. The people exempt from the system were in lowercase. And so these things have carried forward through a dream state where we've been sleeping and not understanding and taking things for granted. That's all coming to an end now, because when tragedy or trauma or hardship hits, people wake up out of their slumber and they start looking around saying, hey man, all these things I took for granted, maybe they're not what I thought they were. And that's where we're at. But I will say one more thing. Nature proves to us things that cannot be argued. One of the things nature proves to us is if you want to build something in this world that will last the test of time, it's got to be built on a true foundation, right? Mm-hmm. If we're going to build a thing, it must be built on a true foundation. If this is going to last eons or decades or centuries or however we would phrase a long time, everything that's happened to us since 3/11 is a house of cards. It's built on lies. There is no true foundation. And therefore, we can deduce that the time that we will have to contend with this is limited. Now, whether or not I got to spend the rest of my life with this nonsense, which I pray to God I don't, if I have to, I will. And I'll do what I can, for the people behind us. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, it won't go on that long. But what I do know is it's just a house of cards built on lies, and therefore it will not persist for any significant amount of time. The only difference being, it comes from that old saying. What's the old saying? The highest power anyone can possess in this world is controlling the minds of men.
Correct.
Now, if you know that and understand what's being controlled there, then you'll understand that it's true. And that's basically what the news is. There's this invisible thing. You touch another person, you're going to die. Yeah. Talk about mind control. We've been here. I don't know how long human beings have been here, but we've been hugging, kissing, holding hands since the beginning of time, and we're still here. So nature also tells me that the news is not telling me the truth.
Absolutely. And a like cures a like. There's so much that we ignore, and we let them tell us how to think medically, how to cure anything, how to exactly. And that's the problem. We don't think for ourselves. We don't go back to these basic concepts of human existence and what we naturally are born with. And we need to go back there and use these things.
The fall was not as long as people think. I mean, we've been falling for a long time. Just look at what people could do in the late 1800s. But I just recently saw a study that was done when my grandparents, I'm in my 50s now, so my grandparents might be your great-grandparents.
By the way.
Yeah, so right now, there's a study that I was looking at where they first tried to introduce the aspirin, and my grandparents were having none of it.
Right.
Saying, really, you want me to take this like that's going to do anything? That's not how nature works. But look how far we've come now. We belly up to the bar at the pharmacy. They give us a thing we don't know a thing about, and we just take it. This is part of what's gone on. So I would point out that what they called the greatest generation, those people that were adult going into so-called World War II, were in a much more no-nonsense adult mindset. Mm-hmm. So in one sense, we've fallen a lot for a while, and since my grandparents very quickly, but there's nothing that prevents us from getting back. And part of it is media. You have to detach from media. and the details of media, because that is all put together to control your mind and to warp your thinking. So if you spend all your time digging in details, you are on a spin cycle. You might as well be a hamster in a cage on a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is get yourself back to the point where you just sniff, something burning in the kitchen here? Because if it's burning in the kitchen, I'm not interested. I know it's not true. I'm walking away.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you need to get to. So when that TV, I'm exposed to it within a sentence, I already know. I can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new sense that I've developed, and I'm not interested. I don't need to know the damn details. That thing is lying, and I can smell it, and no one can tell me different. And when I walk into the kitchen and something's been burned, no one can tell me that's not true. I may not know what's burned or how it burned, but I know something's burned. So what do I know? I don't want to eat that. It's no different. And so these are common sense things that probably our great-grandparents, for most of us, had and began to lose very quickly because of the programming onslaught and the commerce systems that we're going to follow. Most people have forgotten that pre-1915, if someone had to prove there was a member of their family, you know what they did? They whipped out the family Bible. There it is, entered right there.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what authority was asking. Yep, there it is in your Bible. We're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
1915, the Census Bureau starts up. Very shortly after that, they crashed the economy. And very shortly after that, each and every person that lives in the country I live in with a birth certificate is classified as an enemy combatant.
Mm-hmm.
And we've slept, because every time the news comes on and you see that American flag with the gold fringe, what does that mean? Does anyone know what the gold fringe means? Do you understand that that is a flag, a device, and that everything there has a meaning? It's not just pretty. What it actually means is they're at war.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, who are they at war with? Well, you're classified, if you're in the United States with a birth certificate, as an enemy combatant. So these are all falsehoods. These are legal fictions. These are based on commerce and debt and securing debt and banking. And that is not nature. And for everyone listening, we were all born by nature, into nature, and then we got tangled up in this wicked web that we've all got to contend with now.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get back all day long. And by the way, I wouldn't trade places with the jokers, the dark kind of circles doing this, for a second, because they are living in a house of cards, and the first sustained breeze is going to knock it right down. They have no leg to stand on. It's charades, it's lies, it's malice aforethought, it's the usurping of the rights of the majority of this planet. That's a thing that can't last.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And you said it well in a nutshell, really. We have such like these people in power, these evil dark forces that are leading this. They have kept us in that bubble for a long time. So to ensure that it's anything based, a foundation based on lies and mistrust and just in complete utter lies, it cannot last. Like
That's
you
right.
say, it's a house of cards. It has to fall down. It will. And in realms of nature and in the universe, eventually it falls down. If it's 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years in the universe, that's nothing in comparison to the existence of the universe, whatever that means. So yeah, these things can last a few thousand years because it's probably a drop in the ocean in comparison to the reality of the whole existence. So it could, there's a lot of talk about whether it's biblical or prophesies that, there's a paradigm shift. So that shift is occurring, and now the tables are turning where, the light, the white hats, they take the reins and we get to move forward with that.
Let me amend what you said there to offer this idea. Each of us has the divine spark at birth. We're special here. This place, in my view, is here for human beings. We are the big deal here. Everything that the world tries to convince us is that we're this speck in this thing that is so big you can't imagine it. You're insignificant. It's the other way around. We are the center of the universe right here. And don't ever forget it. You're a human being and you're special. And in forgetting what I just said, you've also forgotten to take care of your brother or sister, regardless of what they think, what they do, where they are, because if they're on the wrong path, almost certainly you could classify them as a victim who's been led down the garden path in one way or another. In other words, should we make fun of them, throw rocks at them, or should we try to help them back? Because divided, we all know what happens when we're divided. We fall, and that's much of the game here. So these common sense things like the golden rule that most of us have forgotten, that's not hard to get back. Take care of each other. Have a concern for living things. Act like an adult human being.
Yeah.
When you see a thing you know is not correct, do not participate. And if you're a human being with a little bit of huevos, say in a room of 100 people, nothing here is correct, all you 100 people.
I
If
do
you're not,
that.
yeah.
I actually do that. If I
And-
go into a restaurant and we walk, I've gone in with Norman Traversy. A lot of my followers know who that is. And he's an ex-fireman. He actually can't wear a mask, and he refuses to wear a mask. And actually, more so, he doesn't want to wear a mask. He doesn't want to submit. And when we go into a restaurant, for instance, and he says, "Listen, I can't wear a mask." He has PTSD and many other things, and they ask him to wear a shield. I can't. Again, ex-fireman had to wear a shield. He has PTSD. He can't put a shield over his face. And they say, no, you're going to have to wear it to get to the table. And I look at them and I say, listen, you want us to walk from here to that table, but yet everyone's sitting down at those tables with no mask. You really think a deadly, deadly virus is going to be okay if we do that? It's not going to harm us. I said, use your common sense. Just use your common sense. And I say it out loud because you're standing at the front waiting to be seated, and many people are sitting there and they usually turn around, they look and they listen. I'm not afraid to say that. And I look at that poor person and I say, think for yourself. Just think about it. Use your common sense. Just do it for a moment. And a lot of times they're silent and they just stare at me.
Let's offer another way, because point of view and regaining control of your own thought process will be a big part of what we have to go through now, because we've come through so many decades of slumber.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, and how long ago, maybe centuries, I don't know, because I accept what Napoleon said to be true. History is in fact a lie agreed upon. And what's being hidden in the older history is probably a much better world before these commerce type things began to take over everything a long, long time ago. But it was commonly known that your breath is your spirit.
Yeah.
Your breath is your spirit. So if you cover your spirit with that mask, what you are actually doing is covering your spirit with a corporate veil.
Exactly.
Because that is not a law that tells you to wear the mask. It is a policy. Where do policies come from? They come from corporations. And let's take a look at the words have meaning idea, which everyone needs to get back to. By the way, corporation, the opening prefix, tells you it's a corpse, a body without life that has been granted the rights of a person. And then when you go back to other things that we slept through, like government, well, what does that word mean? Does anyone know what government means? Everyone knows what govern means, right? Control, to govern. What's meant? M-E-N-T. It is always mind. So the very word that we took as these people looking out for us were under the actual label put in our face, mind controller.
Mm-hmm.
So we just need to get back to common sense.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pain in the butt. There's no getting by it. And what we see done to the children, and it's hard. But nonetheless, it's on us. We can go curl up in the corner, or we can stand up like adult human beings and get back to some semblance of normal reality. And how long that takes will probably be about how many people participate.
Exactly.
In getting
and
back.
It is on us. It's totally on us. You know, I feel very responsible, and I think we create our own reality. We've created this. You know, it's time to create the other, and we have to do that. It's upon us. We can't look to, you know, you can only so far you can look to Trump or if people want to look at Biden or whoever. You can only keep looking at that for so long. Eventually, it's the house of cards, and we have to stand up. We have to rise up. We have to take responsibility and not submit. It's up to us. We've created this, right?
In a way, our complacency has done a lot of damage here. But the truth is we really didn't do it. We're victims, and that's not That's not an escape hatch for any of us, because we were supposed to be adult human beings. Fool me once, shame on me kind of idea, right? Well, we've been fooled for a long, long time,
A long
but
time.
now we're coming around to it. And I would say the red blue spell in the country where I live, the United States, it has done more damage than almost anything. As a matter of fact, the television as a black box in every house
Mhm.
has been the most weaponized thing in my lifetime that has done more damage to the minds of men and women than I can imagine. And so the last show of the year at Crrow777Radio.com, Jason and I are going to show you how it got done, who actually seats a president. It's the Electoral College, by the way. Nobody
Mhm.
votes in America. You think you vote, but I can prove to you you don't.
Yeah,
You are
exactly.
polled. And more than that, there was a speech that we're going to haul out that was given to this country, the United States, in 1924 by the governor of the Central Bank of England, which our central bank was then modeled on, where in his speech, unveiled in plain English, he tells you, or tells all the bankers, guess what, bankers? We got this right-left thing going on now. Now we can get this country to fight endlessly about things that don't matter while we take over the world. So we're going to show you all this. We're going to show you that Trump and Hillary are from the same Scottish bloodline.
Mhm.
It's a shell game with no reality. And so I would just point out, what changes a world? Well, in a lot of ways, what's acceptable changes the world, right? Because when a thing becomes unacceptable, then it's not accepted. And that's not about fighting.
Yeah.
That's not about arguing. That's about moral value. This thing is not correct. I do not accept it. And really, that's one of our strongest suits, is to get people back to common sense, because even the people kind of sleepy right now, or maybe they're hard on other living things because they're stuck, when they get by that, what's right and wrong starts to bubble back up to the surface. And when you start gauging everything in this world by nature, what nature shows us, no lie, then it is much easier to say, wait a minute, this is not correct. This is unacceptable. And why are you treating that person that way? Or why do you expect me to act? I'm not doing any of those things. When that begins to happen, then the house of cards will begin to crumble.
Hmm. Amen. Want to see that happen.
Yeah, I hope with all my heart that I don't have to live the rest of my life in this kind of contentious, ugly reality, but it won't. People are already getting burned out, and there's probably going to be other shoes to drop, and this plays back to the TV. What false event are they going to echo 24/7 on the TV
Mhm.
next? It's like this game. They kill a puppy and get this reaction. The puppy wasn't actually killed, but it looked like the puppy was killed, but then that doesn't work anymore. So then
Mhm.
what do? They fill a stadium with puppies and blow it up, all on film, just for your mind to be warped.
Yeah.
And see through it.
And
Video
we
is not evidence of anything. Television is not evidence of anything. And
no.
by the way, a common sense mind will say, has this source lied to me big in the last part of my life? Because if it has, whatever comes out of its mouth next is unacceptable. So this television that spouted 9/11 at me till the end of time, I already know who you are, and I don't listen to you.
No, I've cut it out.
These are
It's been out of my house
critical.
for years. I don't allow it. It's an evil box is how I
Critical.
describe it. It's critical. It's absolutely critical. And it does control your mind. And to think that we're in front of it since we're children and
Some
young
of us
children
raised by it.
raised by it. Absolutely. It's a horrid thing. So
People don't even realize that it's beyond just the programming. Jason and I have done episodes on the flicker rate. They even figured out what flicker rates will put
yes,
your brain into the alpha wave, which is
exactly.
indistinguishable from someone on opiates.
Yeah.
So if you're a habitual television watcher, your brain waves go into what's identical to an opium user's brainwave in under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even start to touch the color spectrum, which is all unnatural. It goes on and on.
And that's
TV,
why children's mouths drop open, and then
that's right.
they're just feeding the brain in that moment. Like it's so scary.
It's like
Oh,
an opium.
yeah, like an opium.
It
No,
needs to go away. It's not part of our natural world, and unfortunately the people that control that misuse that technology regularly. But that's the thing about corporation, isn't it? They can never reach a plateau where they say, we're at peak usefulness for society, let's just rest here and be useful to society at the best we can. It always has to go further. And when common sense doesn't fit into going further, that doesn't matter. We'll just start harming people, or we'll do whatever, because next year we need to make more money than we did this year, which is all a bit much in the first place because money doesn't have any value. There's no gold or silver backing the money in this. It's fiat currency. It's an IOU that will never be paid off. I hand you an IOU, and the only reason it works is because you're reasonably sure you can hand the IOU to someone else. In other words, we're passing IOUs endlessly. And by the way, all the money people that I know are guaranteeing that the monetary reset comes in 21. That remains to be seen. But are we all struggling for a thing of no value that's just going to be redesignated, catch all in some way in the first place? And this is another one of the illusions. We base so much of our life on how much money can I get for this. Really? Are you going to harm a person or a living thing or nature for $1, a piece of paper that is an IOU? Might be a little more excusable if it was gold, but really, no, not that either.
Call it dirty fiat.
It's crazy. It's crazy where we've come, and now we all got to deal with the undoing and reestablishing of what's acceptable in our world. And it's may not be easy, but it's got to be done.
It's got to be done, and we have to move through it. And we're about to, venture into 2021. What do you see happening for 2021? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, we're in a new era, I can tell you that, and I've tried to prove it by the zodiacal ideas, by the Kali Yuga ideas, and I can't do it simply because I don't know enough. And I've spent a lot of my time trying to understand what I call the sky clock, because ultimately that's the only clock for where we exist. When you look at your cell phone and it tells you it's noon, it's not noon. I'll take that bet all day long. The only noon that is real is when the sun is at its apex for that day, called solar noon. And we've all lost sight of these things too. But the point I would make is one of the things you will notice now is the era that we've just come through, everything was based on maritime shipping, water ideas. That's why a bank is in the banks of a river. And what's in that banks of the river? Currency. It's all nautical ideas. Well, that's all shifting over to air ideas. And that is due to the sky clock. And the sky clock was never lost sight of by the people who run the show here or try to run the show. So you will see that earphones become earbuds. You will see a beer pretty soon called Air Light. You will see endless things with the air idea built into it, showing you that we're crossing over into the new age. The only difference is you and I are playing catch up. They knew it was coming for a couple centuries. And so again, we're behind the 8 ball, but at the end of the day, we're human beings and life finds a way, doesn't it?
It sure does. It really does. And we're about to witness this, I believe. So thank you so much for your insights. I think this is a great time we can maybe conclude our interview. I know you have another one you have to get to, but I really, really appreciate your insights. They're very wise, and I wish for everyone to please share the information, share this interview, show your family members. I think it is important, and I think it's important not to let those powers that be divide and conquer mentality rule us. We need to come together. We need to stop the divide. So, and go to Crrow777. Please say your radio show where they can reach you again.
All right. My main website hub is Crrow777Radio.com, Crrow777Radio.com. I do have a YouTube, which I post mostly bumpers there now because of the censorship. That's just Crrow777 with 2 R's. And thank you for having me on. And I'll just say in closing, I would like to wish everyone listening to this, I would like to wish you all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era. And don't forget the golden rule. Help out your brother or your sister. Gauge everything. Is this right or is this not right? And have no truck with those things you know to be incorrect. And we'll get through this. How long it takes remains to be seen. But there it is, man.
Yeah, amen. Thank you very much, Crrow. So great to have you on. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.